Welcome back to Friend of the Show. This is our second episode. I'm Joshua Wold, and today I'm joined by Jon Cheney, who is I'm going to make sure I get this right, the Chief AI Officer of Gen AI PI, a serial entrepreneur. And we'll have links in the show notes to a course that we're going to talk about here shortly that I took last week. And the framing kind of for this episode is I'm a designer who mostly doesn't code. So I'm a product designer. I've done a bunch of others. And I've been having an existential crisis over the last 6 to 7 months, really the last couple of years, about AI, where that fits into my life. Can I keep up or will I be completely replaced? And that has not been going away, despite my best attempts on an almost daily basis to figure it out. But last week, I took a course from you that gave me some excitement I was not expecting. So I wanted to have you on to talk about that. We'll talk about a bunch of things. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Joshua. Great to have you in the course, obviously, as well. And I feel your pain, right? I mean, I started Gen AI PI because I saw people not paying attention to AI like I know they need to be, and it legitimately just worried me. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this business is going to be gone if they don't change something now. And friends that own businesses and neighbors and people like that, I'd be talking to them about it. And it's like, yeah, I haven't really tried it, haven't really touched it. It's like, oh my gosh, like you got to do this now, or you might get left behind. And so, it's not meant to scare. I don't want to scare. I want to help. I want to save people by helping them just realize, hey, you don't have to go out of business. You don't have to have an existential crisis like you are, right? You just have to maybe move a little bit and adjust in the food chain.
So I had been a little further along than most. I work at Angel where they've been encouraging everyone to try out AI. I had a budget where I got to test out a bunch of different software. I have colleagues who were daily sharing things, but it still wasn't quite enough, at least in my head. And you kind of the nexus of the course that really turned my mind. So this is a course we'll talk about in a little bit here, but essentially you explained a way to do prompts and interviewing yourself that I had never really done. Can you first of all, I'll back up really quickly. Can you explain at a high level how these bots could help a designer? And then we'll get into that loop because I want to talk about that loop after.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of skip to the end and then go back and fill in the blanks, a lot of people today are using AI to do their work for them, right? And when they do that, they all of a sudden have the existential crisis that you're feeling, right? Because they're saying, crap, it just did everything that I do, right? And that's, I think, that's where a lot of people are getting it wrong. You're the creator, right? I'm the creator. The AI is not the creator. It shouldn't be. That should not be its role. It's capable of creating, but it creates with a human in charge, right? And too many people let the AI take charge, right? And so, when you're designing and you're thinking, for example, I write music, right? I'm a composer, right? I've got instruments all throughout this room, and I've got a nice big grand piano in the other room, and I love to compose. And can AI write music? Yeah, absolutely. Jump on suno.com and you'll have a blast. You'll be like, wow, I'm making, hit songs and I can upload these to Spotify. Right. And, maybe you can, maybe you can't. But the bottom line is it still can't create in the same way that I can. It can't have the creative inspiration that I can in the same way. All it can do is mimic others, right? Now it's very good at it, and it is good enough. And when you look at it, you say, hey, design a web page that does this, 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 and this. And you're like what? I don't think I can do better than that. Right. Or whatever. Right. You start to get worried, but designers should be using it. The right way to do it is to really flip the script, right? Is to have AI be pulling things out of your head, right? Where you can say, and that's why people will hire Joshua Wold. That's why they'll hire Jon Cheney. That's why they'll hire whoever's listening to this, is because they like your work, right? Now, the fact that you can get it done 10 times faster with AI is just an advantage to you, right? But if you know how to prompt the AI correctly, you can stay in control. You could say, all right, we want this, we want this, we want this. Let's move that around. Let's do this. Let's do this. And here's the kind of flow that we're trying to go for. And now I want you to ask me questions to make sure you understand what I want. And let's build out a plan together, right? I mean, that's kind of the high level of how I do almost everything, right? Whether I'm, with AI, right? If I'm coding, if I'm vibe coding, if I'm writing a strategy, if I'm writing a legal document, if I'm writing an email, a pitch email, whatever, right? I'm very highly involved in the content creation, right? It might organize my thoughts and I might ask it to write a draft, but then I'm going in and really tweaking it and changing it. But anyway, that process that you're talking about in terms of this interview is really quite simple. And it's very easy. I watched a great a great video this morning on Instagram by an awesome, AI influencer, and she was talking about something kind of similar to this, right? Like, hey, help me make strategy, and I want you to ask me some questions about it so that we can make sure you get my ideas. I think that's one step in the right direction, but the way that I like to do it is to go even a little bit further. And the problem is when she asked that question, it came up and it said, 15 questions that it asked. Hey, what do you want of this? How about this? What's your strategy here? What's your strategy here? And our brains don't do well
It's
with
too
like
much.
it's like a big piece of homework that just plopped in front of us. No one likes to do homework, right? And so what I do is I say, okay, Mr. I want you to interview me one question at a time about my marketing strategy, right? This is what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. Just maybe a 2 or 3 sentence description of what you're doing. And then, okay, now I want you to interview me one question at a time so that you can help me develop this strategy out and create a document that will then serve as, my guide as I continue going through or for this next project, whatever it is that you're trying to create. But interview me one question at a time. And by the way, I've tried this with Gemini, with Grok, with Claude, with ChatGPT. It works on all of them. Okay. They're all capable of handling this one question at a time thing. And it's really quite impressive. Right. And one of the things I like about it is number one, it's going to get you, like I was saying, it's not 15 questions all at once. It's just, okay, let's focus on this. And then even if you don't know the answer, you can have a discussion with it. You say, I'm not really sure. Where is the gap in the market here? Or what is the best practice here? What should I be thinking about? And then, it can answer and say, okay, that's great. Let's go with that. Right. But it will ask you questions about your strategy, your design, your app, your whatever it is you're trying to work on that you might not have even considered, right? But the important thing here, the most important thing of all of this is it's great that it's helping you think about things. But the important thing is that it's helping you think about things and then pulling those ideas out of your head,
Mhm.
right? And because it's pulling them out of your head, it's your idea, not ChatGPT's idea or this, conglomeration of everybody else's ideas in the world that was used to make the LLM that you're using, right? And so that makes you feel more in control. And I bet that's part of I feel like I'm in control
Yes.
again, right? Is because you are actually dictating what the AI is going to be doing and it's your strategies being implemented.
So I've already recommended your course to several people, and if someone's listening to this and this sounds intriguing, we'll talk about at the end how you can join the course because I highly recommend it. The biggest nugget that I pulled out, so I'm sitting in there with a cohort of maybe 10 other people, and I'm feeling skeptical. All right, this is just some other thing that we've all seen Instagram clips of. I don't really know what to do with this. And the moment you define that process, it sounds so incredibly simple now that you've said it, but for some reason I'd never fully seen it outlined. And then you said, okay, essentially, we're going to spend the next couple hours showing in practice, in reality, how you can do that. I sat on that for a night and I thought, I don't know. I'm not sure if I believe in this. I've tried a bunch of other things. They've never really worked. The next night, I couldn't sleep. The next night, I was up till midnight trying that exact process and I'm going to describe this briefly. I keep an Apple Notes doc of all the app ideas I've ever wanted to do. And as a designer, I've done zero. And finally, I asked ChatGPT, help me interview me on these ideas to help me find the ones that would be the simplest and the best ones to try. I used that process. Then I took one of them and it was a Bible trivia app for kids. And I said, interview me on that. So I went through that. And then I developed out an entire brief for the app. And then, and I would like you to share the next part with Replit. That was the connecting part, especially for app design that I'd never done. How do you kind of describe if you're doing this whole prompt for interviewing for an app idea, you jump into Replit. I'd love to know how you do that. And then I'll share my own experience afterward because it was really exciting.
You're asking, how do I really create the prompt to be good for Replit?
Yes. Yeah. What's your process for? So I'm jumping a little further because I know there's UX designers and product designers listening. How I've specifically applied this to making a small app. That was the exciting moment for me, realizing I could get something into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and whether it's Replit, Lovable, Bulk, Cursor, like whatever there's a lot of vibe coding and different types of coding assistants out there. Some of them more capable than others. I personally am a big Replit fan. And my little plug for Replit is that I believe that Replit is the most complete, right? Especially if you're not a developer. Right. If you don't know what you're doing, Replit to me feels the easiest because it's all there inside of there. I need a database. It's there. I need to deploy. I can do it there. I can, everything can happen right there. I don't have to go connect tons of other things to make it work and make my site go live. And so anyway, but where a lot of people get it wrong in any of these platforms is they're too vague. They leave too much up to the AI, right? And it's because maybe they say, you know what, I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. I don't know how to tell it what to do. I'm just going to tell it, hey, you know what? I want a Bible app, a trivia app, right?
Hmm.
And they tell it what they want it to do, right? Here's the, hey, I want you to, have this kind of quiz system, and you answer a question, and then you get points to certain teams and whatever, and you kind of describe the process. You might even go that far. A lot of people don't even go that far. They just kind of let the AI figure it out as they go, and they kind of adjust it. But what you learned in the course, Joshua, and that we talked about, is you need the AI to understand the why. Right. And in AI, and really in any conversation, it's called context, right? You need it to have the complete context. Because if it doesn't have the complete context, if it doesn't understand the big picture, then what it will do is it will make up its own big picture. Right. And now, again, you've lost control. You've lost control of the AI, and it is going and doing its own thing. But if you can clearly define, why are you doing this? Who are you doing it for? How much is it going to cost? What is the business model? How are you different from other competitors? Where do you fit in the big picture? And you put together a 5-page business plan around the prompt. And then you use some fancy cool ideas on how to get that stuff inside of Replit. But if you can use it to guide it, and use that document to guide it in more completeness, then you stay in control, right? You now are the one, again, that's in the driver's seat. It's really funny. And my background a little bit, I know I was quickly introduced in the beginning, but my background a little bit, for
Yeah,
those that don't
please.
know me, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've raised, tens of millions of dollars, and sold companies, and hired hundreds of people, and I've done that. I've been the CEO, founder, uh, call it, I don't know, in real life. I know AI is real life also, but like, I've had to be a leader to humans, right? And when I'm an ineffective leader to humans, it shows, right? I give someone a task, they come back, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted. But whose fault is that? Is it theirs? No, it's probably mine. I gave that human a bad prompt, right? I didn't give them the full context. I didn't give them everything that they needed to make that happen. And so anyway, it's funny, you can apply that kind of both ways, but
Hmm.
ultimately, if you're the boss of AI and you give them a bad prompt, you're kind of just rolling the dice.
I love that parallel that you're describing because we've all done this, right? I've told someone, hey, I need this. And the thing they bring back is not likely to have read my mind. And so I get frustrated. That's really my fault for not having taken the time to either say, hey, ask me questions about this, or let me direct a more descriptive brief of what I'm wanting. And I had not thought about that parallel. It works both ways with AI or with a human who might build you an app. If you just say, hey, make me a trivia app, that's not going to go very well, even if it's the best designer and programmer who's trying to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. You just tell them, hey, I want to build me a weather app, right? Build me a CRM, right? Okay, that's fine. But what are they going to do? Well, they're probably going to build you the most average CRM you can think of, right? Why? Because they're going to go out, whether you're a developer or an AI, probably going to go out and be like, okay, what do CRMs do? Well, they hold names, and they hold companies, and they hold, deal status, and they hold project, whatever it is, right? And okay, hey, this is what most CRMs do. And here's the average. There you go. Right. Now, you can improve your prompt slightly by saying, build me the best CRM ever.
Hmm.
Now, that's still vague, but it's a better prompt, because now at least it's going to be saying, okay, I need to outdo everyone else, right? I need to look at the best CRMs and make sure I include everything they have, and I got to outdo them somehow. Well, what are CRMs missing? Oh, they're maybe missing this, and whatever. But again, you still don't want the AI to do that. And second of all, you're going to be a bad CEO if you don't understand why your product is better, right? I mean, just the exercise of defining, let's make the best CRM ever. Hey, why don't you interview me one question at a time so we can figure out what that really means together, right?
Something
And then you're pushing hard, and now you're really in charge. You're the product guy, you're the CEO guy, you're designing that whole thing, and then the coding assistant will be able to help you bring that to life.
as you were going through the course toward the end of day one, and that's where my skepticism was still there. I'm naturally that kind of a person. I was thinking, okay, how can I really do something with this? How can I actually benefit from this? So the second day, as I'm trying this little Bible trivia app, I loved the thought process of think through the business case first, because often as a designer, that's not where my brain will default to go, right? I'm immediately thinking about good interfaces. I'm thinking about usability. I'm thinking about making this delightful. But this thing should serve a purpose in the market ahead of all of that. And I the prompt that you give and the process I went through made me think about that before anything else. And so by the time we get to what features will be in it, and by the time I'm actually vibe coding that in Replit, there's actually a thought process behind it for why it should exist. And the thing that got me so excited is by the second night, I had an app live deployed to a .com address that I bought. And that app had a functional database of like 500 questions initially. You could trivia it, it asked questions, and I tested it with my kids and wife. And that Saturday, I tested it with a dozen kids, and it now has a database of 4,000 questions. This is a thing that exists on the internet. Anyone can look at trailblazerstrivia.com. It's just a free little app because of I had all the pieces in the past. I'm a designer. I could make this. I technically could code it in HTML and CSS, but I could never quite pull it all together quick enough. And basically, in 2 very long nights, I had it live. And that was the thing that just changed my entire perspective on where AI can help me, because that is a 10x improvement vastly over anything I could have done before. Is the app beautiful? No. Is it secure? Probably not, but it's not storing any user data. It's not storing any sessions. It's purely allowing you to interact and get questions back and forth. And that's a real thing of value out in the world. And you can probably tell from my voice, I am so excited because now instead of being nervous and freaking out about AI, I'm thinking about the next 99 app ideas that I could build on the side. And that's not even to mention that as a designer at Angel, I've now, as of 2 days ago, been able to run this process through a feature that we're trying to design, a feature that we need to build. And that's what's got me so excited.
Yeah, I love that. A few points that I want to just kind of pull out from what you just said there. First of all, you can make it secure. You could add user interface and all that stuff and save all those different things. I think that's awesome. But one thing that you mentioned, you said you started with 500 questions, now you have 4,000 questions. Talk me through the process of and share with your listeners, 'cause I think it's very valuable. How did you come up with 500 questions and 4,000 questions? Did you use ChatGPT or Grok to do that and then pull them in,
Hmm.
or did you do it all inside of Replit? But that's one thing, guys, that takes a lot of time. You've got to actually have a really cool product, like a trivia product. You need content. And it used to be that you had to pay different types of teams to do that, right? You've got your UX, UI guy, and you've got your person, pulling it all together, your full stack developer, and you've got maybe a CEO that's trying to sell it and figure that out. And then you're going to have a whole content team. And now AI can just fill those in super
Yeah.
fast. Tell us about that. I'd love to hear your process of how you got 4,000, trivia questions into the app.
Well, first, I've over the last 6 months been buying trivia card games to play on Saturdays with the kids at church. And so we've been doing this for months. And so I'm aware of the mechanics of how the game should operate. I did not pull from any of those questions. What I did instead, and these are Bible trivia questions, so it's like, all right, how old was Adam when he died? That I could have spent 20 hours and written out every question I could imagine. But I wanted to first see if this app could just be useful in the world the first night with 500 questions. So I first asked ChatGPT to help me, and it chickened out. It kept lying to me and saying, here's 500 questions, but it was 15 questions repeated a bunch of times in a spreadsheet. And I tried 4 or 5 times. It would not do the exercise. And this is where the course was helpful. I then put the same questions into Grok, and it went to work for 12 minutes and built me a database of 500 questions. I did spot checks, and I could tell from spot checks that it was at least mostly decent. There were some problems, but I was like, this is good enough for me to test. I pulled that database in for my kids because we had been testing the app over and over with the 15 questions and they were getting bored. Then we tested with the 500, and suddenly the richness of the questions, my son's like, oh, I've never even heard that about that character in the Bible. It's this obscure character like a judge or something. That is why I wanted to make this app, to excite kids about a topic. And then I added other categories for geography, etc. I want them to get excited about information and why that matters. But so there's 500 questions I sourced, and then I expanded it into a bunch of other categories. And then what I did is I just started playing the game over and over with my son. Anytime we found a question that was bad, I'd take a screenshot, and then my next step is now I'm going to go into the database and manually fix any that are wrong. I know some of the questions are dumb. It also would categorize like an easy question as the most, some of them were incredibly hard. So I'd have to recategorize a few of them, but it was incredibly valuable, even though it wasn't 100% accurate. And that was more important to me initially for kids to have fun with it, even if it wasn't 100% accurate.
So I would encourage you. Here's a cool trick. You
Yeah,
talked about
please.
Manus during the course, right? Manus is an agent that is capable of very complex, lengthy data processing, and I think it's more capable because of how it breaks up its context. Grok still has a context limit, and that's why it might get things a little bit wrong sometimes. So with Manus, what you could do is you could actually ask Replit, say, hey, give me an export of all of the current questions, right? All 4,000 questions, right? And then, download that file,
Yep.
upload
Which
that
is
file.
very easy to do. It just gives you a CS.
Super easy. Just grab that and then export that, or not, sorry, import that into Manus, right? Just drop it into Manus and say, hey, I need you to go through and correct any inaccuracies in any of these questions, right? So
Wow.
most of them are great, but I need you to just double check each one, make sure the answers are right, and update the relative difficulty as well, right? Whatever, you could ask it that kind of a question, and it should be able to go through 4,000 pieces of data like in its sleep. Like it might take an hour or two, right? It might take a while to run that process, and then just grab that, upload it, and say, hey, Replit, please update the question to the database with these updated questions. So try
So
that.
I am going to 100% try that. That'll be probably my next step. And something I want to, if someone's listening and they're feeling that existential dread pop back up, the thing like, oh, your AI is doing too much for you. No, these are things I'm less interested in doing. What I'm more interested in doing is seeing the delight of a dozen kids playing this game live in a room and getting excited about learning a topic. And for instance, my son, he suggested, Dad, why are you doing this taking turns mode? Can we do a different mode where kids just shout out the answers? I'm like, what would you call that mode? And he's like, shout out mode. So there's a shout out mode in the app now where the kids can get excited and they'll be in a room all yelling the answer. And that's in the app as a new feature. I basically wrote out the prompt and it modified the whole thing. And so I still get to be creative. My son, as a user, gets to give feedback and be creative. And frankly, I think that's a more interesting part of app development that I want to be involved in to make those delightful things.
That's so critical. I have to just pause you there for a second.
Please.
The thing that you're experiencing is user feedback, right? You can guess all day long and hypothesize all day long, and your AI might be able to hypothesize right alongside you all day long. But so many ideas and apps never actually make it into the market because you're stuck just being like, is this good enough? Is this going to work? Whatever. And
Yes.
then, you finish it 70% of the way and then you're afraid to push it out, whatever. Right. But even though yours, you said yourself, it's not beautiful. It might not be completely perfect. Some of the questions might be up. Who cares? You're getting user feedback right now. And everyone, the users, the creator, right? All these people, you're all enjoying the process. And I think people worry, especially designers, right? Because a lot of designers are perfectionists, right? They want it to be
Yep.
perfect before they show the world. And I
Yep.
get that, right? I'm a pianist. I usually don't put my music out until it's ready, right? I don't want to show a rough draft of my song because, I might not like a certain part. I might not be happy, or I might not have the structure all put together, whatever, right? But people really do love that. Like sometimes I actually will with my piano music on social. I'll say, hey, I got the song. What do you guys think? Right? I like this, do you like this idea? Oh yeah, it's good. Hey, what if you did this? What if you tried, speeding it up here? That part wasn't as strong. Take that feedback and just go back and be like, okay, hey, I'm just using, that's called building in public, right? But building in public is so crazy powerful because you're getting that user feedback as you go. And soon you might be to the point where you say, man, this is good enough. I've gotten a lot of user feedback with this kind of 70% done thing. And now it's 90% done. Now it's 95% done. I'm ready to start charging for it. Boom. Now you've got yourself a business that's already validated. You don't have to wait. A lot of people say, hey, you know what? I'll get my feedback, but then I'm going to, charge people for it. And then it just kind of dies. But if you put it out for free and just let people use it that are in your target market, during the design and build process, if you ever do want to start monetizing it, it's going to be way better. It's going to be battle tested.
And that process, I'm glad you called that out because that was the most critical piece. That on night 1, night 2, I've got 3 user testers giving me feedback while I'm coding it. Like I would say, hey, here's a version in Replit. They'd play around with it. It'd be a bug. I'd say, hey, give me 5 minutes. I got to fix a few things, bring it back. And then a few days later, I'm testing in front of a dozen kids on a live deployed site. That's why Replit was so incredibly valuable. Actually, the following week, it started costing me quite a bit. It was costing me about $50 a night in vibe coding. I moved it onto Claude Code plus Railway, and it's to deploy it there, but there's still an issue with the domain DNS. And it took me an additional 6 hours probably to get it up and live outside of Replit on another system where I didn't get to add a single feature. I didn't get to add a single bit of value to the system. And that's where I would encourage someone. I think that's the difference with the way your course described it is how could you maybe in a night have something out in the world? And that's more important to me, frankly, as a designer at the moment than the week. If this was any other project, I would have done the Claude Code plus railway process, and the project would have never shipped. It would have stalled out. In fact, it has stalled out. And I'm seriously debating just going back to Replit, paying a little more money and continuing on because it's so delightful. And I'm thinking about monetization.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to speed and action feel good, right? I mentioned during the course that I believe one of our core human superpowers, if not our core human superpower, is our ability to create, right? We are creators. And I believe that we find joy almost exclusively while creating, right? Whether you're creating art, creating music, creating apps, creating jobs, creating people, right? Creating, whatever, a garden, creating food, a new recipe, whatever. Those things, like it's hard to think of any of those activities and say, I'm not happy while I'm creating. Like people just love to create. Everyone creates their own thing and it's cool. It's just part of what we're able to do. And when you get into the non-creation part, right? Dealing with DNS issues, for 6 hours and trying to work on a configuration that's not really actually doing something. Now, for me, I kind of like puzzles like that. So that doesn't really discourage me in anyway. And I purposefully pay a little bit more because Replit makes it so easy. I just do. That's just my personal decision, right?
Hmm.
And I have very few $50 coding nights. Mine are usually more like 11 or 5 or 17 if I'm really going at it, but I'm really efficient with my prompts.
I think I'm very inefficient, and that's something that might be worth me
Yeah, let's
figuring
talk
out
about
how
that
to
in another
make it
second.
cheaper.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, get away from the things that aren't creation. Get out of the way. Let AI do that. Let AI take care of that. Let these, as we talked about in the course, surf, right? Use other people's solutions that are already built so you don't have to create your own. So you can focus on the cool stuff that you're wanting to create, that awesome trivia app, that cool CRM that you wanted to build, that neat new personal brand website, that new social network that you wanted to build, that whatever, right? I love to create. I've mentioned I'm a musician and I obviously love vibe coding and creating apps and things like that. I also love to create. I'm a wizard in Premiere. I'm pretty dang good in Photoshop. I love video. Like I have cameras everywhere. I have 4 drones and 6 GoPros and multiple DSLRs. And I do it because I'm a whitewater kayaker and I love to get out and just do film all that kind of stuff and then make cool videos of me kayaking down cool stuff or other people, people I'm with, whatever. Anyway, but I love to create. I love to create. And I really, I don't know if I've ever met someone who didn't agree with me on that point. They love to
Hmm.
create too. They might create different things than me. And that's great. That's part of what it is to be human is we all have this ability to create. I think that's where a lot of people are like, I hate AI because it's threatening
Yep.
my opportunity to create.
And in reality, doing it the way you've kind of described, you actually can create more. And that's what's got me excited. So I've got a question for you. This is something now I've been thinking about this week. I'm part of a larger organization where I'm one of a number of designers. We have a lot of people in the organization who are incredibly excited about AI and others who are just wondering, what does this mean? How can I apply it? I'm not quite sure. How would you advise designers who are kind of on this? All right, maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll take John's course. Maybe I'll test it out, but to kind of implement it into their practice if they're of a large organization. What experience have you had kind of advising people there? Because that's something now I'm now thinking about for my next steps.
Yeah, you know what? Play. Just play around with things, right? That's how you start to learn. If you just kind of say, I don't really get it, right? And I haven't been able to figure it out. It's fine. That's fine. Like we're all learning. I'm learning. Every day I'm
Hmm.
learning. But I follow a bunch of different awesome creators on in AI, influencers, whatever, people on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, whatever, on Reddit, right? I mean, there's great things. And I love finding threads, especially on, there's a lot of X threads and people that do this, where they'll say, hey, look at the 10 new examples of all the things you can do with this platform. And hey, this new platform just did an update. Look at all the 10 crazy things that they're doing, right? And what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through and when I see something, I'll be like, oh, it's interesting, interesting, interesting. Oh, hey, wow, that's pretty cool. And when I feel myself stopping and saying, wow, that's cool, I won't just say, wow, that's cool. I will immediately go to that platform and try it. Right. And then, I'll follow the prompt for the example, whatever. I might even copy exactly what the example was. And then I can say, okay, now I've done it once. Now I can start to apply it to my own thing. But it's just a matter of playing with it, right? Just using it, doing it, right? I mean, you can take my course or don't take my course. There's lots of ways to learn. I think my course probably crams a huge amount. It's kind of like a cheat code. It gets you down the line way faster. But But the reality is there's lots of great resources out there that are talking about all the newest, latest, and greatest. And one thing that I want to caution people of is there's always the latest and greatest. There's like 20 new platforms every day, and it's obviously impossible to keep up with that, right? And so just go in and try things a little bit, be aware of what's out there, but then you're going to eventually kind of hone in on what you like. Like, for example, there's lots of different ways to mix music, right? There's Pro Tools and, Ableton and all these different things. I use Cubase and I love it. I know how to use it. And is it as capable as Pro Tools? Probably. Is Pro Tools as capable? They both have their strengths and weaknesses. But the bottom line is, except for a few maybe like edge little things, they both do the same thing. And so I just need to be comfortable with what I love. And so if you're saying, I'm not very comfortable with Claude, okay, I mean, that's fine. Use ChatGPT. If that's what you're comfortable with, great. Dive in, use that, right? And maybe you're trying to, is it Lovable or is it Replit or is it Cursor? Is it this? Like whatever you're comfortable with, man, just go for it. You don't have to learn everything. It's great to be aware. It really is great to be aware and to see what other people are doing. But the reality is, Replit is watching Lovable and Cursor and Bolt, and their team is watching that. And if there's some feature where everyone's like, oh man, that's crazy, that's game changing, Replit's going to say, we need it.
Yep.
And then they'll throw it in too, right? And so, let these other companies worry about the little small details. Just find something you're comfortable with and just play. Get in and use it. Play it. Try it. Say, what if? And then just try it. And it's really not that expensive to jump in and play with things. Like one of the favorite platforms I have that I've played with a lot is 11 Labs, which we use that on the course. That's a AI voice conversational agent type thing where you can just do really fun stuff, cloning your own voice, changing your own voice, talk tracks, creating all kinds of different things. And then even talking to an AI, creating an agent, throwing that on a website or whatever. It's only $5 a month. It's $5 a month to be able to get in and play with that. And I don't know, man, like how many things do you spend $5 a month on?
Well, and I want to give the course some credit because let's see, about 8 years ago, I was taking on a new role as a product owner. So I was helping a large organization with doing a bunch of change management type work, and I was being brought in as the product owner because I'd been doing it a little bit. I got flown to Dallas, took a 2-day course with Mountain Goat Software to get certified as a product owner. And for anyone outside of tech, that's basically you're helping to wrangle design and engineering together to build software. That you're kind of you have the ownership of that. And I finished the course on Friday. I walked into the office of the client on Monday. I did not know nearly 10% of what I ultimately needed to know, but I had the confidence of 2 days in person trying out actual practical advice with a class, with a teacher, where I knew I could know. And that was the difference. It was, I was like, I have no idea what to do in this scenario, but I remember in the 2 day session, there was an answer. So I can take a note and I'll go back and figure it out. And that for me was the difference with the course last week because all the pieces have always been available to me. Now, granted, some people are learners where they will just tinker on their own and they will figure it out. But that's not everybody. So if you're someone a little more like me, where it's actually better to spend 2 long, in-depth days on a Zoom call or in person with a group where you get to wrestle through things, that then cemented in my mind the following night when I was working on this app idea. Not that I knew how to do it, but I knew I could know how. And that I think for some learners is the distinction that matters. So I'd say if you're someone listening, you're kind of like me, it probably will be worth it because of the excitement that would follow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working with some really smart people right now on building more AI training, like kind of outside of Gen AI PI, but advising them and doing some really cool work. And one of the topics that we're covering a lot that just keeps coming up over and over, right, is this idea of AI confidence, right? Just having confidence that you can use AI, that you can understand how to figure it out. And one of the tricks that we talk about a lot, we talked about the course, and then I've seen other people say as well, is using AI to figure out how to use AI. Right?
Mm.
You can this new platform comes up and whatever, and you're just like, oh, it's so confusing, or I'm kind of scared of this, or whatever. Well, I'll just ask ChatGPT. Hey, there's this new platform. What can I try? What should I do? What
Yep.
exactly should I type in? Can you make a prompt for me that I can use to try it out? Here's the idea that I want, and here it is. And it will just there it is. It will walk you through it. ChatGPT is an incredible teacher. It really can be. Don't just let it do it for you, right? I mean, you can in the beginning. That's your first step. Then you can ask it, hey, why did you write the prompt this way? Right? Try to understand it. I like to understand the why behind things. Like I've hired really smart seats, way smarter than me, right? People that are CTOs and chief strategy officers, chief marketing officers, and I've hired all these people. And one of the things that I think they enjoyed me asking, because I think people like to show off what they know, whatever. But I would always ask why, right? They'd say, hey, we need to re-architect this and we need to put this in, and I need you to authorize this purchase so we can buy this thing or whatever it is, right? I would say, that's awesome. Do you feel like this is the most efficient way to move forward, right? Yes, it is. Okay, I need you to explain to me why. What is this going to accomplish for us, and how does it work behind the scenes, right? Or why are you going to re-architect this? It's going to cost us, $20,000 to make this change. Can you explain to me why this is going to speed it up? Are we going to get a 10% increase? What is, are we going to reduce our server load? Are we going to have a faster experience for the users? Like, what is the reason? What is the why? And because I always ask those questions, I gained a pretty deep understanding of how our systems work, right? My last company, Seek, was all about augmented reality and immersive technology. And I started in 2016. It was pretty early in that
Mhm.
space. And so we were doing very cutting edge things. But because I asked those questions a lot, when I got on with, some VP at Facebook or some VP or chief marketing officer at Walmart and Lego and Nestle, and these are some of my clients that I had, right? And these are people that, they're big time, and they are impressed by knowledge. They're impressed by the why, right? And because I understood the why, I could talk to them at their levels. And they're just like, wow, you really understand how this works. And yeah, okay, let's go. Like, you guys clearly get it, right? That's part of being a good CEO, is saying, hey, do I understand the why behind everything? And so don't just, again, this is part of that. Don't let
Mhm.
the AI be in charge. You're still the boss. And as the boss, you need to understand why it's put together. You're the one that sees all the puzzle pieces, right? I'd have investors all the time. Still happens. I have investors all the time that say, hey, you should do this, this, and this. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, thank you for your feedback, right? But the reality is, I'm saying, now it's not the right idea, because I can see all the puzzle pieces and they only see their little understanding, right? I'm the one in the code. I'm the one in the business. I'm the one in talking to the customers every day. I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of synapses in my brain that have been
Mhm.
connected, that no one else can have, because they don't have all of the inputs that I have. And so as you go out to build all this stuff, understand the why, ask those questions, and it will just make you smarter about how and why your stuff works, and make you a better AI user overall, because you'll understand why this platform does what it does. How does it actually synthesize stuff? You'll also learn its limitations, right? You'll be like, oh, okay, because I understand this, I understand I probably shouldn't even try this prompt because it won't work.
Two practical examples of this that I've been seeing. I was listening to a podcast with DHH and Lex Fridman, 6-hour podcast, where DHH, he founded Basecamp and is a programmer who is all like loves being in the code. And he described he doesn't want to give up the ability and have code written for him, but he's happy to get feedback on code all day long from AI. So what he'll do is he'll ask questions to get responses, and then in his own, hands, because he loves coding, maybe he's an old soul, he'll do it himself because he doesn't want to miss that context, those pieces. And what I've been testing personally at my job is when I'm doing an illustration, I will ask ChatGPT to help me give me some ideas for the illustration. I'll say, not that this way, not this way, not this way. Then I might even ask it to create a couple variations. And then I will still do it myself because I want my hand to be on the pen. I want to have a feel for it, but I'm using all the composites to inspire it. And I feel like that is a little more practical than like the big business cases where you're actually knowing where to go. But it still kind of stands that there's a human element where my synapses are doing a thing that is still relevant. And that maybe that helps to give me a little hope for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I still believe that humans' brains are more capable, even when you talk about, AGI and ASI and all these things. You don't, we have quantum processes happening inside of our brain. Our brains are so much more powerful than most people even realize, right? Even doctors that, study brains, and scientists that study brains, they're the first to admit, like, we really don't understand how powerful the brain is, right? And I think we're quantum on top of quantum. I mean, we are big time, amazing computers. And so because of that, we're gonna be able to outmaneuver, AI in some ways, right? We're gonna be able to outthink them, and go, think outside the box in a way that the AI isn't programmed to currently to be able to do, right? They typically can't come up with their own ideas. Now, this is changing. This is changing, right? That we're just seeing the very beginnings and evidences of what's called emergent AI, where the AI actually thinks of something completely novel that's never been done before. right? And that's cool. That's cool. It doesn't mean that it's smarter than humans. It just means that it's also getting smart, right? It's getting smart. But there's no question. I love what you say there, right? When you're doing the art for yourself. Oh, this idea, this idea, this idea. Okay, I kind of want to do that. I kind of want to like go into Suno and come up with some ideas, and then be like, okay, this is a vibe. Now I'm going to create it from scratch,
Well,
right?
that
And that's fun.
yep. I had an art teacher in college, and she actually the way she taught us students to draw and to create and to paint was she's like, study the masters. Look at how Leonardo da Vinci actually did his line sketch art. Look at how Michelangelo did his paintings. And she actually had us spend hours upon hours retracing line by line with vellum paper. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like transparent paper, resketching over the art to get a feel in our hands, in our pens, for how it was done by these really great artists of old. And essentially, Austin Kleon has a whole book, How to Steal Like an Artist. There's this whole concept of it is completely okay to composite and take ideas from a multitude of sources and then create your own revision on those. And that's not actually theft in a bad way. That is inspiration from a bunch of sources. And so now I'm just supercharging my illustration process by running that through a bunch of AI bots, asking for a bunch of ideas, and then I composite my own from those. And so I was even doing an illustration for my blog last night, and it gave me a really dumb idea. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that at all. I want to do this idea. And that is still allowing me to be the human and having fun, frankly, doing illustrations. I'm still taking a while to do them. It's a little faster, but the ideas are so much more fun. And that's why I love this.
Yeah, again, it supercharges that speed. A parallel that I think about with that is I love to mountain bike, and I have an e-bike, right? I have an e-bike mountain bike that's super, super awesome. And people are like, well, that doesn't get you, you're not going to get your exercise, and that's not, you're not getting the same climb and whatever. I'm like, actually, I'm super tired when I'm done. But here's the difference. I went 40 miles instead of 20,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I used to come up to certain trails and I'd be like, I'm not going to do that climb. That's too hard. Like, and I'd always wonder, like, what's up that trail? And now, anytime I see something, I'm just like, turn it up, let's go, right? And my e-bike work, like, it doesn't just, it's not like a motorcycle where you just go up. You have to pedal,
You
and then
still pedal.
it assists you, whatever. Anyway, so I'm still working, and because I'm still working, it's just assisting me to go way faster. I get to explore way more of the world and see cool trails that were not accessible to me before, right? And so I think that's pretty fun. Another thing I wanted to say here is, I'm a huge fan of John Williams. He is arguably the best movie composer of all time, right? Most movie composers, the Hans Zimmers, Alan Silvestri, Thomas Newman, all these great people. They'll be the first to say that about John Williams. But John Williams writes music the same way that do your inspiration, right? And that your teacher taught you about. If you look or listen to the Imperial March, right, Darth Vader's theme,
Mm.
and then go and listen to a guy named Gustav Holst, right? He's a classical composer, and listen to a song called Mars, the Bringer of War, right? You're like, that's the Imperial March, right? Like,
Wow.
there's the bum 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 bum, right? And then some of the even the all the flourishes and things behind the scenes, right? Right, all that stuff. It's all in there. It's put together differently, and John Williams definitely made it his own. But the best of the best do this, right? You know, and this also brings up another interesting topic, right? Is copyright. There's a lot of
Mm.
questions about IP and copyright, and how can the AI just be trained on Pixar content and Disney content and DreamWorks content and all this stuff? And is that legal? Is it allowed? Whatever. The reality is, humans already do those things, right? We just don't tell everybody. Oh yeah, I pulled my inspiration from Toy Story and Tarzan and this, and they don't say that. And the honest truth is, you might not even know it. You might not even realize it, but your brain was trained the same way. It was trained on references, and you liked something, and that something stuck with you, and then you started recreating your own version of it. And it's the same with AI. It's the exact same with AI, right? It is. Now it just feels different. People feel weird about it because it's a machine or something, and people are making money off of it, and everyone's able to rip off other people's styles. But reality is, I can look at Joshua Wold's style right now, and I can be like, "Hey, I like his style. I'm going to just copy it." Right? As a real artist, I could just sit down and be like, if I'm not capable of drawing. There's no way. It's not me. But a capable artist could easily rip you off and tweak it a little bit and be like, "No, I drew this with
Well,
my own. It's mine." Right? And no one would be able to say anything about it.
on my newsletter, I've been doing this black and white art style with yellow. And I've drawn like that for a decade, but I was watching the movie Thunderbolts from Marvel, and in the end credits, they had a bunch of black and white sketched art with yellow, and my brain just lit up. And I read this book. I've got it here on the shelf somewhere. The guy who invented cinematography, the whole comic book was black, white, and yellow, and that is not a copyrightable thing at all, right? But it inspired me to build out my own style, and that is art. That is creativity. That is what makes us come alive. And it might feel a little weird that how something like Grok or ChatGPT can just collect everything in the world and spit it out in a minute, but it is an opportunity and it's a reality that exists. And I love what you talked about in the course. It's surfing on top of that instead of getting bogged down in it. And this kind of leads to my question. If someone's a designer of some sort, I'm a product designer, UX designer, but someone's in this field as a whole, what do you think is the first thing they could do after hearing this to try and say, all right, I'm gonna poke my toes in? What would you advise them to try to do first?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, play around. And I would do it in something very basic, right? ChatGPT is a great place to start for most people, right? It has, I think, something like 800 million weekly users right now. That's crazy. And
So
so
many.
there's a reason why it's the biggest and best. Does it have deficiencies? Sure, totally. Is it can do some things poorly? Fine. But the reality is, get in there and ask it to do things that you do normally, right? Like design a web page, come up with an ad, copy, come up with, hey, take this and turn it into a 70s styles ad. Hey, take this image of my family and turn it into Toy Story style animation, whatever. Just play with it. And but by just starting to play with it, and by the way, you probably can't push its limits hard enough, right? It can do so many things. You could spend days and weeks and months prompting it and playing with it and discovering new things that it's capable of doing. And it's just getting stronger every day. They get in there. And the way that I really like to think about it is think about the tasks that you don't like doing that are related to your job and see how you can maybe figure out AI to help you do those things. Right. We have the parts of our job that we love. And maybe you say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing that because I love it. Right. Just like you were talking about with bass. Right. That's cool. But I think that if you use AI to kind of just fill in the gaps, then it starts to feel magical, right? I like to say, if I wanted to create a nuclear reactor in my backyard, I could do it now.
Mm.
Not because, and look, I don't have the uranium or whatever I need to do. And there's plenty of centrifuges and things that I just don't have access to. But assuming I did, ChatGPT could walk me through step by step how to do that, right? Like I live on a 5-acre farm and I've only been here 3 years. I did not build the place. The people that built it, I think they knew more about, like how things work than I do. And so I've had to learn a lot, right? Like I've had to like rewire things and learn how to do irrigation and all this stuff and troubleshoot things. And I'm calling less and less specialists now. I'm just doing stuff because I say, I have a problem and here's a picture of it. And here's what I'm trying to get done. And they'll say, great, let me walk you through it. I saw somebody post the other day about, their AC stopped working. It was hot, whatever. It's been hot throughout the whole US. But they said that they just, kind of took the thing off and they turned off power to their AC unit, took it off and then took some pictures of it, said, hey, this is what's happening. And ChatGPT said, oh, yeah, it's probably this thing. If you look for this, this, and this, you'll be able to tell if it's actually broken. And they went to the store, bought a $19 piece, came back, installed it, and it was done. And
Wow.
and trust me, I've paid a lot of AC repair bills, and that doesn't cost $19, right? It's usually, 400, 500, 700. They're like, oh, hey, you need a whole, new furnace. It's going to be $11,000, I've had that many times, but now, you can jump in and you can do anything. Right. And I think that's a big message of AI is if you just take away this limiting beliefs that most people have of like, I don't know how to do that. Like get that phrase out of your head, replace it with, I don't know how to do that on my own. And then know that you can replace the on your own with GPT, right? With Chat GPT or Grok or whatever. These systems are capable of seeing things, right? And so you can take a picture of it, show it to it, and it will be able to understand and help you diagnose and walk you through step by step. Now, one caution, one just, warning sign I'll throw in there with that is trust but verify, right? I really love asking clarifying questions. Like, are you sure this will work? Are you sure this is the best way? Are you sure this is the most efficient way to do this? Like, that's something I'll do in Replit, right? I always Ask it to plan before it does. And even after it puts together this beautiful plan, I'll say, okay, is this the most efficient way to do this? Or are there better practices that we're not doing? Oh, you're right. You know what? We could actually be way faster. I'll also say, is this the most efficient way to do this? Is there a simpler way to do this? Oh, yeah, we could just modify this one line and it will accomplish that whole thing. Well, then why'd you give me this whole plan? So anyway, sometimes you need to do that. And so understanding how to navigate your way around AI's limitations is also really, really helpful, right? Trust but verify. Ask it clarifying questions, follow up, and then try it and then do it, right? I mean, the thing that separates the doers from the audience, right, is just the doers are willing to get in and fail. They're willing to get in, and that you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail, and failure is not a bad thing. I really don't like that the word failure has a negative connotation. I think it's one of the most positive words in the English language for me. Failure is a teaching moment. When you fail, you've learned something. You've either learned how not to do something or you've tried another one of your hypotheses that didn't work. And it's progress. Failure is progress, right? I used to do door to door sales, and door to door sales can be brutal. You get lots of no's, right? And, finally, yes. But eventually, after a while, you start to realize, okay, hey, every 20 houses, I'm going to get a yes, right? You just kind of have your averages that just work. And so every time I got a no, I was like, yes, I'm that much closer to my next yes. Right. It was a win. It was a win because I knew I could do that. And your attitude, when you turn that no or that failure into a positive, it actually changes the whole game. And you usually end up increasing or improving your averages.
One final question on Replit. Are there any other ways you found to be more efficient with your prompts other than asking it? Because that's brilliant. I had not even considered that. I'm going to start asking it to be more efficient. But are there ways you've maybe cheapened the cost of building things out?
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what I'm saying here, right? And the way that you do it is you ask it to do something. Say, hey, we need to put a new system in, or we need to put in, maybe you want to add a user system to your trivia app, right? And you say, okay, we need to do this. This is what I'm trying to do here. What's the best way to do this? What do you think? And then you append your, whatever it is. You say, don't write any code, just tell me, right? Because if you don't say that, then it will just get busy and it will start making the most efficient thing. You have to tell it, don't write any code, just tell me. And then it'll give you its plan. And and then you say, okay, is this the most efficient way to do it? Is there a better way to do it? Don't write any code, just tell me. And so you're asking several iterations. And then after you feel like, okay, I think we're on the right track, then you say, okay, great. Write me a final plan of how you're going to do this step by step. Don't write any code, just tell me. You have to always say that. And then you get your plan, then you say, do the plan, right? And so then it knows. And it's really, really good, right? When you ask it to think through the problem. I saw another really interesting post today. It's the first time I've seen it. I should have saved a screenshot out of or something, but somebody's gone through and studied the efficiency of AIs when they run into a problem. Sometimes you tell it to do something and it's like, I fixed it. And you're like, no, you didn't fix it. It's still not working. It's still not working. It's still not working. And people will literally just keep saying that to their agent. And the agent's just stuck. Like it's not going to get out of that loop. Right. And there's a graph that someone created with a bunch of statistics that just shows this diminishing returns curve kind of, right? And so if you don't let it plan, see, to get it out of that loop, by the way, you could say, hey, you've tried this a couple times, it's not working, can you please tell me why do you think it's not working? Don't write any code, just tell me. Okay. Then it will take a step back. Oh yeah, I keep trying to do this and this, but that's obviously not going to work because of this and this. And you're like, well, duh. Well, why didn't you figure that out on your own? Somehow its reasoning that it's able to do live is not as powerful as it can do if you ask it to plan first and then apply that reasoning from the prompt, right? So you're in essence, what you're doing there is what we were talking about earlier. You're using the AI to create a better prompt, right? And so even if you don't know exactly how to describe why this function isn't working, from a technical level, you can ask the agent to figure out why.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you were wanting to bring up or thinking about ahead of this call?
No, I think we've covered a lot of it. We really have. I think the main message is just get in there, right? Get in there and do it and get better at it, right? I'm a whitewater kayaker, and whitewater kayaking is deceptively difficult. People see someone going down a river and they're like, oh, it's easy. And they get in and they're just flipping over immediately, just swimming all over the place, and they just can't do it. And the reason is because currents are very subtle sometimes, right? The changes in currents are very subtle, right? You'll go by a rock and there's an eddy behind it, and that eddy has, this pattern of how the water moves and turns, and it's literally going upstream behind the rock. And if you put your edges in the wrong place, just like when you're skiing or snowboarding or water skiing or any of those things, if you put your wrong edge down, what happens? Boom, you're tumbling, right? And so kayaking is very similar. But you can theorize about it all day long. But the best way to get better at kayaking is to spend more time in your boat, get on the river and start paddling and feel that river, give you that feedback, feel that river flip you over and feel it when you get it right. You're like, ooh, that feels good, right? Oh, hey, I just used the river to be really efficient to get down this, whatever. Anyway, the best way to get better at kayaking is to kayak. And so the best way to get better at using AI is to get in there and use AI. And so, that's part of why I've created this course, is to help people, whether they're experienced or, brand new at it. I have all levels come through that course. And but we focus a lot, right? I bet how many hours, maybe 2 hours of the 9 hour course talking about why,
Mm.
just talking about like, why does this matter? How do we think differently? If we can change the way that we think and approach these problems and these questions and these tasks and these outcomes and everything we're trying to do with AI, if we just change the way we think, we can do some pretty amazing things here. And again, if I can do it, you can do it, right? Anybody can do it. I'm a tech CEO. I've done some cool stuff, and I have a broad range of interests. But I think the only thing I have on other people maybe that aren't quite as caught up with me is I'm just very curious. And I think anybody can do that. I don't think I'm better or smarter than other people. I think that other people can absolutely get in and be way more productive and way more capable of doing this with me. If you get in, you can really figure it out. Part of the cool part of the story of how I started a business in a week. The course is called How to Build a Business in a Weekend with AI. And one of the things that really set it apart is I didn't just build a business. I did $100,000 of revenue in the first 30 days, right? And then 180,000 and then 300,000 and it just kept going, right? As I turned it into real outcomes. But I think I did it because I applied strategy throughout the whole thing with the end goal in mind from the beginning, right? And so, again, to bring it back around, if there's anything you take out of this, whether if you never take my course or listen to Joshua ever again, but you hear this, do everything that you're doing, whether you're using AI or just like you were saying, right? Just doing it the old way, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Think about the end. What is the end outcome? And how does this button help improve that end outcome? How does making this edges more more rounded, or adding a drop shadow, or whatever it is you're working on, right? Your tiny little task, does it help the end outcome? Right. And it's very easy for you to answer that. Why does this drop shadow help? Oh, because it'll make the button feel a little bit more interactive and people will be more excited about using the experience. And
Hmm.
when they're having good experience, they're probably more likely to buy. Great. You can actually justify that. You totally can. Every decision, right? Why am I choosing this font? Why am I putting this arrow here? Why am I putting this, right? Some indicator that helps them move one further step through the process of whatever you're trying to design or do. Um, and if you do that, you'll just get better outcomes in your entire life and anything you're doing. Think about that end outcome. Why am I doing this? And to get more philosophical, why am I spending time doing this with my family or alone when I could be spending time with my family? Because my end outcome really is I want to have a better relationship with my kids and my wife. Awesome, right? Okay, well, is sitting in my man cave by myself for 4 hours a day helping me get there? Maybe not, right? Hey, I like my man cave. I'm just going to reduce it to 2 hours a day, and I'm going to spend that extra time with my wife and my kids. Or I'm going to invite them into my man cave, maybe even. I don't know. Maybe that's a sacred space. But anyway, bottom line is, when you approach life that way, when you approach all of these problems that way and saying, okay, when I'm really thinking about the end outcome, what do I want my life to be about? Am I actually optimizing right now for everything? That applies in a lot of levels.
So if someone's listening to this in the beginning of August 2025, how can they get a hold of your course? How can they hear more about you? And then if it's later on, what are some ways they could reach out to you? Because I know you have a course coming up here sometime in August.
Yeah. So I mean, I used to do courses every single week. The business is growing faster now, and I don't quite have time to do that. I know that sounds weird, but bottom line is, there's a lot of private businesses that I'm working with and other things that are happening kind of behind the scenes. But I teach this course, let's say 2 times a month now, and I'll probably keep doing it for a while because I really do enjoy teaching entrepreneurs and creators.
And it's evolving. I had a colleague who took it earlier this year and again last week and said that there was new things he was able to learn from taking it twice.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, yeah, if you want to take it again, that's great. But bottom line is, if you go to genaipi.org, and Gen is GEN, like general. It's a General AI Proficiency Institute. But just go to genaipi.org and click on live courses. You'll see the latest live course availability. I think the next one is on August 19th. And then I haven't set it up yet, but I did set up a new kind of referral code system. We'll give you guys, if you're
Perfect.
listening
We'll
to
put it into
this,
the show notes.
yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. But you'll use the code Joshua. you get the name Joshua, right? But that will give you
Perfect.
50 bucks. That'll give you $50 off, right? So feel free to use that code and get in. But would love to have you. And if you're worried about whether or not you're ready for the course, I don't think there's any prerequisite other than the fact that you have to just have a desire to do awesome stuff in your life, right? If you have that desire, you're gonna do great.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited in a way I haven't felt in a long time. And this is what I hope anyone listening can hear in our voices is we're excited. There's something fun to do here, but also where John's at in life and where I'm at in life. I have a wife and kids. I have a family. They are the most important thing to me. And I'm also creative who loves making things. And I'm finding a way to continue to love and make and create while getting to be with my family. That's what life is about for me. And if you're listening to this, I think there's plenty of opportunities for creatives to continue going forward, even in a world where AI is changing under our feet every day.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Joshua. Really excited to be here. Hope
Thank you.
everybody
And
got something out of this.
hopefully so. And if anyone's listening, if you have any questions, just email me, Joshua at joshuawool.com. And thank you so much.